The night started with a dare, a teasing whisper over dinner that made my heart race and my breath catch. He looked at me with those eyes, the ones that always saw more than I let on, and asked if I would go just to watch, just to see what happened. In places people only talked about in hushed tones, I laughed nervously, playing with the stem of my wine glass, pretending I was cooler than I felt, and said, "Why not? How bad could it be?" We walked into the club, hand in hand, his palm warm against mine, the low music pulsing through the walls and the air thick with heat and tension. People mingled around us, dressed in satin and silk, their eyes curious and fearless, the kind of people who had already let go of judgment and shame. He squeezed my fingers, gently reminding me I wasn't alone, reminding me I was safe here. I wore red that night, a dress that hugged my body and dipped low in the back, and the way his eyes traced the curve of my spine made me feel like I could do anything. Even this was sat near the bar, our drinks untouched, watching couples drift from one conversation to another. The way they touched was electric, subtle, but full of meaning. It wasn't long before they found us a couple about our age, confident and magnetic. The woman had soft curls that framed her face like a halo, and the man had a calm smile that made me feel like he had nothing to prove. Their names were Alex and Nina, and they had a way of talking that made the world blur around them, like everything outside the four of us had gone quiet. They asked questions, about us, not just what we liked or what we'd tried, but what we dreamed, what scared us, what turned hesitation into hunger. I answered before I could stop myself, letting the words fall like secrets, like confessions I hadn't known I'd been holding, and they listened, really listened, and somehow I felt seen in a way I hadn't before. When they asked if we wanted to join them in one of the rooms, my heart stuttered. I looked at my partner, expecting uncertainty, but he only nodded slowly, his thumb brushing mine, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I wanted this not just because of curiosity or lust, but because something about them, about us, in this moment felt like surrendering and claiming something all at once. The room was dim and quiet, the bed large and inviting, and as we stepped inside together, clothes fell like petals, kisses bloomed across skin, and all the lines I thought existed between what I should and shouldn't do blurred and faded. I wasn't thinking anymore, I was feeling his hands. Their mouths my body surrounded and cherished and worshipped like a temple, and I gave in, not just to them, but to my fevery touch was patient. Every moan answered like music, and when my partner kissed me while their hands explored every inch of me, it felt like a dream I didn't want to wake from. We moved as one, a rhythm of trust and desire, and in that room I found something I hadn't expected, not just passion but connection, a reminder that love could stretch and expand and still remain whole. That night, I didn't just take a step outside my comfort zone. I walked into the deepest part of my fantasy and discovered it was real, and it was mine. The next morning, sunlight poured through the sheer curtains, painting the room in gold and silence, and the first thing I saw was him, my partner, lying beside me, his face soft with sleep, and then I turned and saw them still here, still warm and close. And everything inside me fluttered with something that felt like freedom. I slipped out of bed, wrapped in nothing but his shirt, and wandered into the little kitchen space where Nina stood barefoot, making coffee. She looked over her shoulder and smiled, that quiet, knowing kind of smile that said everything without a word, and I smiled back, feeling lighter than I had in years. She handed me a cup, our fingers brushing, and in that moment I remembered everything, not just the way we moved together last night, but the way she looked at me, like I was something rare and precious, something wild and worthy. When the others joined us, we talked about everything and nothing about what we felt and what surprised us, and how sometimes the best parts of life are the ones you never plan. I caught myself staring at Alex as he spoke, his voice like a slow wave, and I thought about how he made me feel seen and heard and alive. And then I looked at my partner, who watched me with that same steady love he always gave, and I realized we hadn't lost anything. We had gained something, something raw and honest and real. Exchanged numbers, hugged goodbye, and promised to meet again, but even if we never did, a part of them would stay with me forever. That night had shifted something inside me, peeled back layers I hadn't known were hiding, and showed me a version of myself that was fearless and open and full of desire, the kind that burns clean and deep and leaves you glowing for days later. That week we talked about what it meant and what we wanted moving forward. Not just more nights like that, but more. It's truth, more honesty, more permission to want and ask and explore. And in that space between confession and understanding, we grew closer, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. He kissed me gently, then the kind of kiss that says thank you, and I kissed him back with everything I had. Turns out a single night can change you, not because of what you do, but because of what it awakens. And what it reminded me was this: I am allowed to want, to feel, to crave, to fall. And that, sometimes the deepest fantasies come true, not in secret. Not in shame, but in the light of trust and love and letting go. And when you find people who hold you in that space, even for one night, you never forget how it feels to be truly free.